The Tampa Bay Lightning's weekend went like this: a big Friday win in overtime in Chicago, a tough divisional loss in Detroit, and then a trade to boot. We'll break down the whole weekend here on today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here, thanking all of you for taking a listen to Locked On Lightning and making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is almost here, and there is no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And we're going to get started by talking about the Lightning's win this weekend, a game against the Chicago Blackhawks. The Lightning won 4-3 in overtime. Mitchell Chaffee got the opening goal on a power play. Then the Blackhawks scored the next three, and the Lightning scored the next three. Nick Paul, then a power play goal from Jake Gensel, an overtime power play goal from who else but Nikita Kucherov, and the Tampa Bay Lightning ended up victorious against the Chicago Blackhawks. The first of two times they will face Chicago in the span of a week, with the Blackhawks coming to Amalie Arena on Tuesday night to start a short homestand. Blackhawks, Kings, a 5-game homestand, including 2 games with the Senators in the first week of February. We'll certainly talk about that next Blackhawks game tomorrow, but this was definitely a big win for the Lightning. Kucherov getting to 50 assists on the season just continues to be impressive. He's having a really good month of January also. The most points by any Bolt in a calendar month already, with 19, 6 goals and 13 assists in 14 games. And the Bolts might not have their best record in the month of January, but Nikita Kucherov is starting to heat up. He's really starting to, just take himself to another level, which is hard to believe that Kucherov can even go a level higher than he can. But he's starting to heat up at the right time, really getting into midseason form, and just continuing to dominate for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's got he had an 11-game point streak that ended in the shutout loss, the 8th time he has done it. The only active players with 8 or more 11-game point streaks: Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, and Leon Draisaitl. Also, Kucherov's 6th career 50-assist season, tying Martin St. Louis for the most in Lightning history, and his 100th career 3-point game. Joined an elite club. Steven Stamkos is the only other Lightning player with over 100 3-point games. 4 more of them, and Kucherov will pass Stammer, who has 103 in his career. Nick Paul, 7 points in each of his last 7 of his last 11 games now, with the goal on even strength. And Cam Atkinson played in his 800th career game, 1 shots and a little over 5 minutes of ice time, and a big congratulations to Cam Atkinson. I think that's something that needs to just his 800 games in the NHL is a lot. Atkinson might not be a star in the NHL. He might not be a household name, but if you can play 800 games in the league over about 13, 14 years, just consistently playing pretty significant ice time and consistently, helping put the pucks in the net. 800 career games, 252 goals, 234 assists, almost 500 points in those in those 800 career games. And Atkinson, his first year with the Lightning, has really made an impact in the locker room. A great guy just to have around. And he's been a solid addition to the third and fourth lines, really helping some of the younger Lightning players. And, he's been a nice free agency, just rotation piece for the Lightning. And, you got to tap your stick to Cam Atkinson, because 800 career games in the NFL is not easy. And it's just a great feat for Atkinson to be able to accomplish it. And you like the Lightning celebrating another milestone in victory. Atkinson getting his 800th career game. Then, of course, the power play being another big key for Tampa. A perfect power play trio for the Lightning, 3 for 3. And the Blackhawks 0 for 2 on their power plays. The Bolts won 50 to 46% of the faceoffs. And they held the Blackhawks to 14 shots on goal. And Jonas Johansson saving 11 of those 14. It could have been, if Vasilevsky was there, could it have been a shutout? Maybe. But, it might have been a little different if he was in there. But the Lightning still got the job done. 40 to 14 in terms of shots on goals. You'd certainly expect the game not to go into overtime. But in the last 2 periods, third period and overtime, the Lightning outshot the Blackhawks 18 to 1. They outshot Chicago in every period. So it certainly wasn't the dominant game that you'd expect from a dominant offensive performance, and even in a lot of ways defensive. The Lightning held the Blackhawks to very little. Just Chicago capitalized on the few scoring chances that they had. And sometimes, no matter how well you play defensively, that's just what's going to happen. Sometimes you play against a team that is on a good shooting night. And regardless of 3 goals and 14 shots on net, for the most part, that's good defense. Holding an NHL team to under 15 shots on net, no more than 8 shots in a given period, is not easy to do. And even if the Lightning had to win this game in overtime, it's still impressive that they held an NHL team to 14 shots on net. Connor Bedard got an assist, did not get a goal. Another, even if it's a young star, holding someone like that to, 1 shot on net and 1 assist in 20 minutes is impressive. So definitely some positives from the Lightning. You just, the only thing that I'd want to change is just a couple of those goals not go in. You shut them down on the power play. You win majority of the faceoffs. You win the takeaway battle. You block more shots than the other team. I mean, the Lightning did just about everything right. Just this was a game that the Blackhawks found their targets, and they did it early on. The Lightning were able to shut that down after the first 5 minutes of the second period. They really turned things around, and they stepped up, and their star players put them on the road to victory. You got Hagel and Hedman on the assists to Paul. You got Kucherov on the assist to Gensel, who is emerging as one of the Lightning stars, and then Kucherov for Hedman and Gensel on that power play. And of course, the Lightning hammering home the power play. They're just, that's something that they need to do, to be completely honest with you. I mean, that's the better the Lightning have success on the power play, the more the Lightning have success in the power play, the better they do. It seems like before just about every game, we talk about the special teams component being an important piece, an important battle to win for the Lightning to win the game. And every game the Lightning win, it seems, they win that special teams battle, and they dominated it. I don't think there's been a more dominant turnaround in dominant battle in special teams for the Lightning this year. 0 for 2 were the Blackhawks, 3 for 3 were the Lightning. I mean, those stats speak for themselves. One of the best power play nights of the season for Tampa Bay, and those 3 power play goals were crucial in a Lightning victory. Now, the Lightning did not follow up that win with another win, but right before that second game, the Tampa Bay Lightning made their first big trade of the regular season, had a couple of trades in the offseason that worked out pretty well. That I'm looking at that Sergachev deal that brought the Lightning J.J. Moser and Connor Geekie, and of course getting Jake Gensel for a third-round draft pick was pretty darn good too. But Lightning with a prospect swap, and we'll give you more on the prospect swap when we return here on Locked On Lightning. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and it's super easy to navigate on the FanDuel Sports app. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, now that's just icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Though it wasn't a headline-grabbing trade, the Tampa Bay Lightnings did let their first domino of the trade deadline period fall, swapping prospects with the New York Rangers. Two AHL forwards switching homes as Lucas Edmonds was sent to the New York Rangers. Will report to the Hartford Wolfpack in exchange for Ryder Korczak, who will report to the Syracuse Crunch. Lucas Edmonds, 23 years old, 5 points in 26 games with 1 goal and 4 assists for Syracuse this season. He has played 3 seasons in the AHL, 48 points, 25 goals, 23 assists in 120 career games. And Lucas Edmonds has been in some kind of pro, semi-pro, amateur pro hockey since 2015, playing for Mississauga in U15 AAA before the Lightning made him the third-round pick in the 2022 NHL draft. He just turned 24, actually, today. So a big happy birthday to Lucas Edmonds, even if he is now a member of the New York Rangers. Ryder Korczak was a third-round pick a year before Lucas Edmonds, but he is a year younger at 22 years old, another Canadian product, another third-round pick. He has 11 points to Edmonds' 5 in 35 games to Edmonds' 26. For the Hartford Wolfpacks, he has played 13 career AHL games fewer than Lucas Edmonds with 12 goals and a total of 31 points, giving him 29 assists. Or 19 assists, to go along with that. So not much to tell on paper. Both are guys who have been around for a long time, been playing U15s in Canada since 2015, around the same age. And it just honestly, it begs the question, like, what were the Lightning, what were the deciding factors really in this trade? I want to say, what were the Lightning thinking? Because it just seems like such a small trade, but there were obviously some little things that the Lightning saw in Korczak that they just didn't see in Lucas Edmonds. I think the more two-way aspect might have been a part of it. JD Burke of Elite Prospect says that Korczak applies pressure on the forecheck and plays honest hockey in his own end. But the offense is a pretty big drop-off comparatively to Lucas Edmonds. He does have some playoff experience, a lot of it in his younger days, but since joining the Calgary Hitmen of the WAHL in 2018, he has made the playoffs in 4 of the last 8 seasons where he has been a pro, including last year with the Hartford Wolfpack, where he recorded a goal and an assist in 10 playoff games. So it seems like his offense in smaller spurts in the playoffs has statistically stacked up better than it has in the regular season for Korczak. And then, there's the smart checking and the two-way aspect of it that Korczak had. And Edmonds this year has recorded some injuries. He's played over 40 games in each of his last 2 seasons. 4 fewer games, 11 fewer points for Syracuse last year. And this year, just 5 points in 26 games. So I think the Lightning just saw that Edmonds, who is still a year older than Korczak, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but in the world of sports, it can really mean a whole lot. And until September, Edmonds will be 2 years older than Korczak, really about a year and a half difference. So, there's definitely the age factor. There's the increased two-way factor. And then, there is the fact that Edmonds has really underperformed. He had a really good season in the OHL in Kingston in 2021. Then he was drafted after an 113 plus 29 season. His best marks across every single category: 34 goals, 79 assists, 113 points, plus 29, and only 14 penalty minutes. But since getting drafted by the Lightning, he really hasn't shown that same kind of offensive firepower. He still has not reached the goal or assist mark in 3 years in the AHL that he reached in 68 OHL games. And I know it's a different game, it's a different league. But the fact is, people have talked about Ryder Korczak's offensive skills not translating to the NHL level, to the pro level, which may be true, but the same can certainly be said about Lucas Edmonds. Both have had more success offensively in the WHL than they have in the AHL. So I think Korczak is just a bit more of a project, but he's a project who's a year and a half younger. So the Lightning can spend a little bit more time with him in the younger levels there in the AHL. And Korczak as a center is a little bit more diverse in his skill set, I think, than Lucas Edmonds, who is mainly a right wing. So maybe the difference in positions and just the need to stockpile centers plays a factor, but I really think it just has something to do with the fact that, both of them have had some offensive skills that leave you wanting, but I think Korczak seems to be a little bit more efficient when you look at their stats. So maybe he's got a stronger upside defensively, but maybe it's just the consistency factor, because injuries have certainly limited Edmonds in his Lightning career. But he just didn't put it all together quick enough, I don't think, for the Lightning. And they felt they can find that same kind of value in a different way. So they go a little bit younger, both third-round picks a year apart. With Korczak actually picked a little bit before, so a bit more pro experience. And the Lightning have done really well when it comes to developing prospects. I think they, you take a look at some of the homegrown guys on their team, and it's most of their best players. You look at your Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, the list goes on for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have so many guys that have come through their system and been a success. Obviously, not everyone is going to be, and they felt that Lucas Edmonds was not the success that they were really trying to make him into. But now they go slightly younger. They go to a guy who definitely has a bit more defensive leaning tendencies. Maybe a guy who they feel can be a better two-way player, but still he averaged almost a point per game in the WHL. So there's certainly some offensive upside there. I feel like it's been a little more consistent on the higher end with a more efficient plus minus as well for Ryder Korczak. But he's also played more games and hasn't had the same kind of injury setbacks as Lucas Edmonds has. So, I mean, there's definitely it's always hard to say right off the bat who won a prospect trade. I think just going on the age, I think the Lightning get a slight edge just because they get a little bit younger with Ryder Korczak over Lucas Edmonds. They get a guy who has a positive plus minus in Ryder Korczak versus Lucas Edmonds, who currently doesn't. Korczak's at +4 this year in the AHL, Edmonds at -5. But Edmonds right now has a more polished and closer to NHL ready offensive game. Lightning are hoping that Korczak is better and more further along defensively as well. That can hopefully give the Lightning the edge. But Ryder Korczak is a new name we'll be watching in Syracuse this year. And the Lightning have some teams to be watching in their division now as they drop down to 5th after a Saturday loss against Detroit. We'll break down that one when we return here on Locked On Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning, after a big-time back-to-back win over the Chicago Blackhawks, were shut out by Cam Talbot and the Detroit Red Wings. Tampa Bay Lightning with 31 shots on goal, and Andrei Vasilevsky had a great game, stopping 26 of 28, but unfortunately, the Lightning offense could not follow suit. One other piece of tough news in the second period, Emil Lilleberg with a interference penalty on JT Compher of Detroit. Compher ended up coming back to the game. 2 in a minor period was assessed to Emil Lilleberg, but he will be speaking with the NHL player safety department likely at some point this week. Might not be... don't know if there's going to be a suspension looming, especially if it was for a penalty that was just a 1 minute minor, but a 2 minute minor, but it's just not something you want to see, especially for Lilleberg, who has really been the kind of physical arm of the Lightning defense, a Lightning defense that really doesn't play that physical of a game. That's not really their strong suit. They're more about the quick checks, but Lilleberg still adds more of a physical threat, which I think is an important element. So losing him, especially with Moser still out and his return date, while he is progressing, Moser's return date still a little bit uncertain. And with the injuries on defense as well, certainly not something that you'd like to see. But some good news on the Lightning defense, though. Erik Cernak did come back, played 25 shifts, more than all but Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough. Played a little over 20 minutes on the ice, blocked 2 shots. So Cernak is back, and Max Crozier back down to Syracuse. So Lightning get a little bit more help on defense, getting one of their regulars back to the lineup, though Max Crozier did have a solid run of games with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The longest tenured call-up of any Lightning player, had an even plus-minus and an average of about 15 or almost 17 minutes on the ice in 5 games with the Lightning. Crozier still yet to record a point on Lightning defense, but he certainly looked like someone that can make an impact on this NHL defense. And Crozier even got about 11 minutes of ice time against Detroit. So, really, I think he had a solid run. I think that he's someone who could feature in the Lightning's lineup on defense within the next couple of years. I think he's that close to being ready, and I think he really is NHL ready in a lot of ways. Just right now, the Lightning don't have enough room for them on their 6-man defensive rotation. But some more focus on the game itself. I mean, this was certainly a game that could have gone either way. I mean, the Lightning certainly had their chances. Cam Talbot was great. Andrei Vasilevsky was great, but it was just the Red Wings' night. First time in 11 games, Nikita Kucherov didn't have a point streak. Mitchell Chafee brought up some of the physicality with 4 hits after scoring the first goal in the Lightning's win against the Chicago Blackhawks. He's been a nice physical presence for the Lightning on the forward side, but this was just a really tough loss for the Lightning. I mean, Kucherov almost extended his point streak late in the first period. He got a really good shot on net. The Lightning, it wasn't a game where the Lightning just got dominated on defense. I mean, this was a solid game for the Lightning offensively. You get 28 shots on net, even if you allow 31, you're in good shape. The Lightning outshot the Wings in the third period. They won almost 60% of the faceoffs. They won the takeaway battle 4-3, despite losing the giveaway battle. They won the hit battle, which is something that has not happened all that much. So it was a good physical game from the Lightning. Just the shots didn't fall this time, and it's a tough one, especially to lose. Not just because the Lightning had just had their way with the Red Wings when Detroit came to Amalie Arena, but it dropped the Lightning down in the standings. Ottawa and Boston each at 56 points. So the Lightning still, though, with 3 games in hand. They have played 48 games, Ottawa 50, Boston 51. They have 55 points, so 1 fewer and more wins than the Bruins, fewer losses than both. So the Lightning certainly still in the race, but you never like to lose points in the division against a divisional team. But the Lightning do have 2 very important dates at Amalie Arena with the Ottawa Senators at the beginning of next month on February 4th and 6th to end off a 5-game homestand before they have a back-to-back against 2 divisional opponents in Detroit and Calgary before the All-Star break. But again, we're this close to the All-Star break. I mean, you don't want to be dropping points against teams that are lower than you in the standings, especially against a team that is quite simply on the rise like the Detroit Red Wings are. They've won 6 of their last 10. They've won 2 straight now. And now we're in the 50-point threshold. With 1 more game played than the Lightning, they have scored 51 points, 4 fewer than the Tampa Bay Lightning. So not points you want to drop in the division. Certainly a tough loss for the Lightning. It was the first time in 113 consecutive games that the Lightning had been shut out, twice as long almost as the next closest in St. Louis, who had not been shut out in each of the last 57. So the longest active run of consecutive games without a shutout has been snapped. And it's not a game. It's just not something you want to see, especially an offensive team like the Lightning, a team with as much offensive firepower that the Lightning have. You just don't want to get shut out by anyone, especially by a divisional opponent. But you got to credit the Red Wings. They learned from their mistakes in Amalie Arena, and they built off of them. So the Lightning just have to step up in the next game against Chicago, plain and simple, because this was not a game that the Lightning really could afford to lose. But they've got 2 more home games to try and push themselves back into playoff position, and luckily, there's still about 34 games for Tampa to really solidify that playoff spot. I still think that they will, but they've got to win their divisional games. The Lightning do not have a great record against the Atlantic Division right now, and that is something that just desperately needs to change, plain and simple. You've got to beat your division if you want to make inroads as a playoff contender, and if you want to get into the playoffs, you're going to have to beat teams in your division because the divisional games are starting to add up. The Lightning still have 2-3 games in hand on everyone in their division, and they're in 5th place right now. It's a close race. There's certainly time for things to change, but I think the Lightning could be higher in their division right now if a couple more games had gone their way. Hopefully, we'll see some more divisional games go their way. They'll have a couple in February around the All-Star break, but right now, the Lightning do have some work to do before they get back to Amalie Arena, and that will do it. I'll be at Amalie Arena on Tuesday, and we'll talk about the game preview of the date against the Blackhawks tomorrow. Until then, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. And now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast, please give us a follow, a like, a subscribe. We really appreciate your guys' support. And if you could support that by liking and subscribing to our pages, we really appreciate it. So thank you again for tuning in and for supporting and being fans of Locked On Lightning. We do the show for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed. Have a great start to your week. And let's go Bolts. We'll talk tomorrow.